Good.
Hi, Sarah.
Paul is in East Texas with his dad. His dad's in the hospital, so prayers for him. It's Dana's birthday weekend. They're having a big party tonight, so she's not going to make it. You know, she'll watch this later. Priorities, right? But we have this at our disposal. So, and Danielle's supposed to be here. She's not here yet, but we will start. Okay. When she gets here, just remind her to close the front door because the front door's wide open right now. All right, let's begin. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvina vadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjali Ranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakra Siddharinam Sahasrashirasham Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha Namo Namaha Namo Namaha. All right. Can you please close the front door and lock it? Yeah, yes, please. You're the last one. All right. So where did we leave off? What sutra? It's 40 something, I imagine, I think.
42.
42. Okay. 42. You can sit right there. 42, talking about the inferior type of samadhi. What is the inferior type of samadhi? The inferior type of samadhi is inferior type of samadhi is with object. Yeah, it's with the object. What else? So there's an inferior without the with an object, which is nirbija. I'm sorry, sabija with an object or with an anchor, and then there's also one without an anchor, which is superior to that. But here, I think he talks about there are three different aspects of an object, referring to the sound or the word, and then the meaning of the word, and then your understanding of that. In this, the three things that are mixed up together. For example, if I said cow, cow is the word. The actual object is the cow, and then you have your memory or your recollection of what a cow is. Right? These three things mixed together to create a meaning, to create a meaning and understanding within you. These three things that are mixed together are word, object, the object that's signified by the word, and then the memory of the objects. So therefore, savitarka samapati is the samadhi of a gross object without the distinction of the word, the object or its memory. In other words, you don't let your memory of the object interfere with your experience of the object. Or you don't let your understanding of the word interfere with your experience of the word. Does that make sense? No. If I called you fat and you were offended, it's because you have an understanding of the word fat, right? And your memory of that understanding, and then you hearing the word. When you're in samadhi, you hear the word fat, you have no recollection of what fat is. You don't have the word, the meaning of the word, and your memory of the word does not have an effect on you. You're in other words, you're able to experience it without having your condition taint or color your experience. So being able to go into samadhi without the subtle expressions or imprints of the words and the meanings affect your chitta, your mental space. This is a very high level of experience. Whereas we are so conditioned, we hear cow, in our mind we see the cow, and then we have this understanding of the cow. These are the three things, Shabda, Artha, and Jnana. Shabda means the word. Artha is the object that is signified by the word. And Jnana, here it's the understanding, but it refers to your memory of the word, your understanding of it, which is based on your memory. Right? If I called you, or you heard, or if I called you, it has no memory, it has no understanding. You understand? So this is a type of samadhi, but it's dependent on an object, whether it be a word or an object itself. But you're no longer being affected by your own conditioning. Alexa, turn off the filming lights. Alexa, turn off the filming lights. So this is still samadhi, but it's savitarka samapati. Savitarka. What is savitarka? Savitarka is with an object, with a gross object. Because this is towards the end of the chapter. We've explored what is samadhi, what is a deep state of meditation, and what is it supposed to do for you. It's supposed to separate you from the process of experiencing, because we're trying to separate the experiencer from the experience. You understand? We're trying to separate the experiencer from the experience. Like, who am I? I'm not the experience. I'm the experiencer, the perceptor, the witness. That which is aware of the object of awareness, which is the object. I am the subject. So who am I? Who is I? So through these meditation processes, the samadhi in particular, we are able to separate drishta and drishya. Drishta meaning one who sees, and drishya is the object that is seen. Make sense? Okay, next one. Next one here is 43. This is 43 is the superior samadhi. I'm sorry. The previous samadhi, there's still the meaning that's still mixed up. So I taught the 43 as 42. So 43, there is still the mix up. The inferior there's still the mix up. I'm meditating on the cow. I see the cow and I'm one with the cow, but there's still this idea of there's a cow. Sorry, that was 42. 43 is when there's no more mix up. That makes sense? Sorry, I had to clarify that. I was jumping ahead. So savitarka is with the gross object. There's still the mix-up between the three things, the sound, the object, and the understanding of the object. Here, 43 smriti, first word is memory. And parishuddha, shuddha means cleanse or purify. Shuddha or shuddhau means bathe. It means bathe or purify or cleanse. And parishuddha means completely clean, completely clean. So your memory is completely clean of this svarupa, the feeling of oneself. Shunya means without. Eva, as if I'm not there anymore. Only the object remains, and the object is experienced without the influence of the memory or the object. So, in other words, the cow, you don't think cow. You don't think like you have the memory of the cow, the shape. It's just you experience the object as it is, with no bias, with no conditioning, precondition, and with no trying to understand it. Like the mind is always trying to fill in gaps. When you reach a level of samadhi, you're no longer filling in gaps. You're no longer making up stuff and believing it to be true, right? We meet someone, and then we see that we have pieces. We have pieces of them. We understand the pieces of them, and then we fill in the rest. And we make up that story about that person, and we believe it to be true. That is not samadhi. That is called making up shit and believing it to be true. You understand? And so when you reach this level, you're no longer walking about the world making prejudgments, assumptions, or trying to fill in the blank with what you don't know. You don't know. You just accept the fact you don't know. To go about the world with this sort of humility and clarity is rare. Would you agree? Because everyone's going about judging every single moment they experience. They're judging this experience based on the memory they had, based on the experience they had. And if they don't understand something, they make it up. They call it magic. They call it, whatever it is, divine. They call it. They just make up something so that their mind can stop questioning what is going on, because the mind is known as the question maker, constantly questioning things. Yeah. And if you don't have the answer, then you either believe something to be true, or you make something up and then believe it to be true. So here in 43, he talks about the nirvitaka samapati is a samadhi when the object alone shines in the mind and is completely clear without mixing up the object, the memory or the sound of the word, and without the feeling of the observer. So what does that mean, without the feeling of the observer? There's this feeling that I am having an experience. At any moment, you have this feeling that you have this. There's this experience, like I'm sitting here talking about Yoga Sutra. I see myself talking about Yoga Sutra, but I'm also having the feeling that I'm having the feeling that I'm teaching the Yoga Sutra. So that feeling that I exist, called asmita, we'll get into the second chapter, but that feeling goes away. This I feeling. If that I feeling goes away and you have not died, then that must mean there is more to you than your mind. There's more to you than your mind. So the quest is, who am I if I'm not my mind? Right? There's no memory of the object. There's no awareness of the I feeling, nor the self, lowercase self, ego, mind. The object remains, but the mind is still there, but the mind is inactive. So you're like, ooh, quietude, but the object is still there. You're not having these thoughts though. It's just the experience of the object. You're not thinking about the object. You're not questioning about the object, and you're not making any assumptions about the object. You're just having the experience with the object. Make sense? Okay, so that is a superior samadhi. So this journey is a sort of journey from the gross to the subtle, right? We've talked about this before probably. That yoga is a journey from the gross, out here, tangible, touch, feel, taste, smell, see, to the subtle, which is going backwards into oneself and exploring the mental states, and then ultimately the intelligence, the ego, and then the soul. So we're going back. The further you go back, the more subtle the experience. So in the beginning, we're looking at outside objects to create samadhi. You're using it like a cow, for example, or a word or whatever. But as you develop your power to concentrate and get into states of samadhi, then the object of contemplation is no longer gross, it becomes subtle. What it was like, for example, contemplating on the ego, contemplating on your intellect, right? Or contemplating on your memory, or these different chitta vrittis. And then ultimately, whenever all that is figured out, then the last thing you figure out is, what is the soul? What is this awareness? What is Purusha? And who am I? 44. Eta Yaiva. Still, in a similar fashion, savicharka, subtle object, with vichara. Vichara means object, so here subtle object with the three distinctions: a subtle object that is intermixed with memory and or sound. Nirvicharka, nirvicharka is without, with a subtle object, but without the mixing of the three distinctions, right? One's with and one's without. Cha means and. Shukshma means subtle. Sukshma means subtle. Vishaya means object as well. So subtle objects. Vyakyata is to be explained. So when samapati or samadhi is applied, samapati is also samadhi. Right? It's an interchangeable word. When samadhi is applied, or samapati is applied to a subtle object instead of a gross object, savicharka or nirvicharka samadhi takes place. Savicharka samadhi is samadhi upon a subtle object where the subtle object remains intermixed with memory and sound, and nirvicharka is samadhi on a subtle object where the subtle object does not remain intermixed with sound or memory. So this is the same thing as repeating the last two, but now he's talking about subtle objects. What are the subtle objects again?
Ego.
Right. Ego, mind. Senses are still gross. Yeah, because the senses help you to grasp gross objects. So now you have to go beyond the senses into the mental realm. Senses are still, it's like the gateway to the inside, the senses. Pratyahara, which is in the second chapter, is to withdraw from the senses. So you withdraw from the external world, but that's second chapter. Subtle. Emotions are part of the ego mind. Emotions and ego, lower mind. Those are lower mind stuff. Lower mind. Bless you. You need Kleenex? Take it with you. Yeah, take it with you. So essentially, this is just talking about subtle objects, samadhi on subtle objects. Again, with or without the mixing of the three parts, right? So 45. 45 starts with the word subtle again. So we're getting more and more refined in our experience. Shukshma meaning subtle. Vishya atvam, we're again referring to objects. Cha and alinga. Alinga means linga means manifest. Alinga means unmanifest. This refers to mula prakriti, by the way. Mula prakriti, or the root of the universe, the root of the manifest universe. What is alinga here? It refers to the gunas, refers to the gunas. Prakriti are the gunas. Prakriti. Remember this? Okay. And pari avashanam, pari avashanam, up to and inclusive of. So in other words, what are these gross and subtle objects, if or not gross objects? The subtle objects to meditate on include all except gross objects. Interesting. He's answering the question you just gave. Remember I told you guys earlier, if you just hold your questions, the next sutra usually answers it. So they are up to and including all of the unmanifested objects in the universe, up to mula prakriti. Beyond that, nothing subtle. So here it's up to the gunas, but it's really the 24 tattvas. 5 bhutas are gross elements, like the earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Those are considered gross, and everything beyond that is considered subtle. So I was wrong then, because if that's the case, then the senses are part of the subtle tattvas. There are 24 tattvas in Sankhya, 24 tattvas. If you subtract 5, you have what? 19. So there are 19 tattvas that are considered subtle. So the senses are part of that. It's just now everything outside the senses would be considered gross. Okay, so good question. I was wrong. Does that make sense, you guys? Your senses are still, I guess, according to Patanjali, are still subtle. But everything outside the senses would be gross. Okay, so moving on. 46. Ta refers to all, eva, surely. Sabija, with an object, samadhi, concentration. So of all of these, one class of samadhi with objects, now we call them sabija, with a seed. Bija means seed. Bij, like bij mantras. You ever heard of bij mantras? Bij mantras are, bij means seed mantras. So here, sabija means seed or with an object. Now he's just classifying them, right? So so you have savitarka, nirvitarka. I'm sorry, savitarka, nirvitarka, previous samadhis, and then savichara and nirvichara. Those 4 types of samadhis are known as samadhis with an object. So there's 4 types of inferior samadhis, right? I'm sorry, yes, 4 types. And then 47, he says, nirvichara is direct samadhi on subtle objects. Again, vaishauradhye, from that kind of skill. What kind of skill? The expertise, right? The ability to go into samadhi. Adhyatma. Adhyatma, what is adhyatma? Adhyatma is the study of oneself. The study of oneself. Prasada. Prasada means result. What is obtained? One is able to obtain one's own self. In other words, clarity and understanding of oneself. So now he says, so the yogi can develop these capabilities. What capabilities? Samadhi, mentioned earlier. Then the mind develops an ability to perceive the self through these practices, through samadhi. So one has a direct experience of the self through the mind. In your book, it says the mind can directly perceive the self, but I think that's just, is that semantics? Semantics means wording, right? This is wording. This is bad wording in my mind, because there's only one part of you that can perceive. What part is that?
The mind.
No, the mind cannot perceive. Senses don't perceive either.
The self?
Intellect is the self. The self is the only part that perceives, the witness. The witness is a perceiver. It's witnessing. It is aware. It is conscious. The mind is not conscious. It doesn't perceive anything. It exports data. The senses present data or information. Only part of you that perceives is Purusha. So here in our book, it says the mind can directly perceive the self. The mind has an understanding of what self is, but the mind does not perceive the self. The self perceives the self. That's why it's called self-realization. Mind does not perceive anything. Remember that. The mind does not perceive anything. The mind is a presenter of information. You are the one that perceives. You are the subject. The mind is the object. Hmm?
And the self is consciousness?
Yes. 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 The self is consciousness itself with a capital S. The mind is the self with a lower s. And that's where the confusion is. I think that who I am is this lower self, mind-body complex. But the true self is not the mind nor the body. The true self means a part of you that's not changing. Mind is changing, body is changing, everything is changing all the time. But the self never changes. The true self never changes. That's why it's called true. True is something that doesn't change. I think we talked about this at the very beginning. We define what is true, what is real. Something that doesn't change. If it changes, it was never true to begin with. Right? You guys remember that definition? So a lot of truths that we experience are subjective truths that are changing. It changes with the seasons, it changes with the years, it changes with the ages. But there is an absolute truth, which is something that doesn't change through the ages. It doesn't change with the seasons. And that is absolute truth, the absolute reality, the absolute, absolute reality and absolute truth. You might see these if you read a lot of spiritual books, they talk about absolute truth. It is a truth that is not dependent on an individual's conditioning. You know, a lot of this, you see a lot of this in yoga world today, which find your truth. You hear this, find your truth a lot. You ever see this? Find your truth. That's your truth. So if it's different from another person's truth, then those two truths aren't true. It's not true. What is absolutely true between everything and everyone, right? This is what we're looking for. This is the question that the yogis sought to answer. It's an age-old question. What is the truth beyond me, beyond my perception? What is the absolute truth? And at some point, people will say the absolute truth is God. God is something that doesn't change in the three phases of time, past, present, and future. But then you use the word God, and then people say, oh, did God create the universe? And then there's another system of thought or school of thought that says, no, there's no thought, there's no God. God didn't create the universe. The universe was an evolution. So you have different conflicting ideas. Here he doesn't say God. Remember, he doesn't say God, the creator. He says it's just a unique soul that is unaffected by time, pain, karma, and unripe actions. You remember that? Ishvara pranidhana. Okay, so this is so again the self, you perceive you through a clear mind by knowing all that is not the self. So what is that? By knowing that all that is not the self. In other words, it's like the scientific process. You guys, are you teaching the scientific process in your school?
Not yet, but they do teach them, sure.
Yeah, we're gonna get to it. What is the scientific process? It's called the process of elimination. That is a scientific process. If you negate everything all the things that it can't be, then you're left with what it is. It's a scientific process. So that scientific process in yoga terms is called neti neti. Neti neti, not this, not that. So you develop the power for samadhi, and then you meditate on all the different subtleties that's listed in Sankhya, and then you identify them to not be who you are. And you go through all 24. I am not the senses. I am not the elements. I am not my organs of action. I'm not my organs of whatever. I'm not I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the gunas, I'm not my intellect, I'm not my mind, I'm not my memory, I'm not. Then you have a firm understanding of all the things that you are not, then you will realize all that you are, which is purusha, which is awareness, just pure awareness. And you can get that by going inside and being quiet. That's what he's talking about. 48. Vrittam bharatatra prajna. Vrittam, I love vrittam. Vrittam here means Vrittambhara means full of truth. Full of truth. Tatra refers to the mind. In that refers to the mind. Prajna means awareness or knowledge. Prajna. Jnana is knowledge. Here's prajna. It's awareness or knowledge. So what happens at this point is that the yogi's mind is full of truth and correct knowledge. Through the purification process of samadhi and deep meditation, then the mind is then full of truth, not made up shit, right? Not imagination, not filling in the blank, not, assumptions, but truth. All other kinds of knowledge, if not gotten by samadhi, may not be true. Because samadhi gives you a direct experience. A direct experience. First-hand knowledge. First-hand knowledge. 49. Shruta. Shruta refers to scriptural. Anumana refers to inferential knowledge. And prajnabhyam refers to direct awareness of an object. Anyavasyaya refers to different objects, gross and subtle, direct perception of the direct perception of a true yogi. Distinction between hearing and analyzing. You gotta have a distinction between hearing and analyzing. It's a process that happens. You hear something, you analyze it. You hear something, you analyze it. It's constantly happening. When you reach this level of samadhi, you can stop that process. You hear something without analyzing. It's like experiencing an object and not putting our shit onto the object. Like, I love what Brian Kess says. He says, when you bring your shit into yoga, you turn your yoga into shit. It's like every experience we have. We take our memory and our experience into a new experience, and then we make that experience shit. Right? Like, can you have a pure experience? Like, be childlike. When a kid has an experience, it's like, they're like, oh, wow, it's like first time ever. You start having these first time experiences all over again. It's a beautiful thing. It's like, I don't know if you had that experience where you had a really, really good yoga practice. And I don't mean like hard workout. I mean like a practice where you purify your senses, you sweat it out, you sweated a bunch of stuff out. So perhaps you purified your body a little bit. Your sweat doesn't purify the body, by the way. The breathing does. But and you leave the class and your senses are heightened. So all the colors are they're brighter and beautiful. You smell the crisp air. It just smells differently. Maybe because you're in a small hot box and you're breathing tamasic air, and you come out and you're like, and you notice the difference, and everything is just beautiful. Even like, maybe you walk up to your car and it's not the car that you've ever loved, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I just love this car, or whatever it is, an object. You have a new experience with that object. It's like the first time again. Then you've reached a level of understanding, maybe not intellectually, but you've reached a level where you're starting to have this samadhi. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not necessarily like sitting down samadhi, but you've had a moment, like a few moments, maybe at the end of class, where shavasana was so good, you had no thoughts, but you weren't asleep. You were in sort of a yoga nidra-ish state. Does that make sense? And you walk out, and everything's new. It's like, wow, this whole world's new. But it's like, I've been here before. I walked into the studio. I walk out, and everything has changed. Did that ever happen? So that's kind of like that. So see, what does he say here? Having direct experience. So he's referring to for one of the, like, I think it's sixth sutra, fifth or sixth sutra, where he talks, sixth sutra in the book. Let's go back to the sixth sutra. What does he say here? First chapter, number 6. He says, Pramana viparya vikalpa nidras. Okay, so it's 7. Pratyakshanumanangama pramanani. Yeah, direct understanding, direct perception, inference, and scripture. He's just repeating. 7th sutra. You see that? In the 7th sutra, Pratyakshanumanangama pramanani refers to the 3 ways of knowing something. What are the 3 ways of knowing something? Here, he repeats that. Direct perception of the yogi of the self, which arises out of samadhi, is different than the awareness that comes from contemplation on scriptural knowledge. He's saying that the direct experience is the best. Inferential knowledge, scriptural knowledge, it's all secondhand. You want a direct experience. And you know you're starting to have that experience when everything starts to seem new again. Like you're experiencing life through the lens of a child. Through the lens of a child. So you're childlike, not childish, but childlike. Difference. It's a difference between being childish and childlike. I remember going to Disney World for the first time. It's like that. It's like every day is a Disney World kind of experience. It's totally amazing. All the little things become totally amazing. I remember having these experiences, and like, I think I was in my 30s. No, I was like, what, 20? No, I was like late 20s. I saw a hummingbird for the first time. I was like, oh yeah, a hummingbird! Like these just little things just totally excite you. Staring at the sky and seeing the stars and just being in states of wonder, all over again. But nowadays, if you notice, if you live a busy life, you go out and look at the stars, you're just like, oh yeah, they're just stars. Hey, I've seen them before, right? Whereas if you're in a state where nothing's bothering you and you're totally clear and receptive, then it's like, wow, awe and wonder. Every experience becomes like that. You enter a new experience with another person without all the baggage. Does that make sense? Okay, we're almost done. 50. So at this point, you've done a lot of samadhi practice, a lot of deep meditation, and now he's talking about samskaras. Samskaras. What is samskara? Samskara means, sam means total, kara means action. Samskara means the sum of all of your actions, or in a more subtle level, it's the sum of all your experiences. And the sum of all your experiences form future experiences, right? And these future experiences are called samskaras, or patterns or tendencies. Samskara means patterns or tendencies. So he says, taja, that from the yogic direct experience. Ja means generates. Samskara, habits or patterns. Anya means others. Samskaras, other habits or patterns. Pratibandhi, bandhi means bind. Here, pratibandhi means unite. And what is prati? Prati means opposite. So the mind. Let's see, what does it say? In other words, the mind transforms. It transforms old samskaras. It reverses your samskaras. The mind can be in different stages of transformation. The patterns or habits produced by the above mentioned sabija samadhi unites or removes the other non-yogic patterns of the mind. What are the non-yogic patterns? The constant state of judgment, constant state of assumption, believing false things to be real, believing your fantasies to be real, believing all memories to be real, thinking that sleep is meditation. I mean, all the things, all that incorrect understanding goes away. In other words, ignorance is removed. Ignorance and wrong knowledge is removed. And what does that leave? What is the opposite of ignorance? Truth. Truth remains. What is wrong knowledge? What is the opposite of wrong knowledge? Right knowledge. Right knowledge and truth remains. He mentioned that a little bit earlier as well. So here, this one is basically saying that all old samskaras start to burn off. Transformation of the mind has been attained. Last one, 51. Tasya. Tasya refers to that. What is that? That being sabija, sabija samadhi. Api also nirodhe, by stopping, nirodha. Sarva means all. Nirodhat, stopping, nirbija, objectless samadhi. So when the stoppage, with the stoppage of even that, what is that? Sabija, and with all the mental states transcended, nirbija samadhi then takes place. So in order for you to get to nirbija samadhi, you have to go through sabija samadhi. So this happens when your mind stops asking questions. If you're in a state of, in order to reach a state of samadhi, you have to have understanding. Once you have understanding of anything, it stops asking questions, right? But if it's still confused, it's going to keep asking questions, which starts the mind to reel again. So the understanding that we're talking about here is understanding of the self. Once you're satisfied with the understanding of self, your mind will stop. Now, this is sort of a misnomer for a lot of people, because when we become satisfied with an idea of self that is false, then you'll take on this new persona of who you think you are. And then you'll go through that for a few years, 5 to 10 years, and then some tragedy will happen, and then it will make you question your idea of who you think you are again, and then the cycle repeats, and then you search deeper and deeper. Then you, for example, it happens a lot with just with, not even in yoga, in life, right? So you have people growing up, adolescents, at some point, you turn 5, 6, 7 years old, and you sort of choose a thing that you like to do, and then you identify with it. And then you get a little older, and maybe you get to puberty, and then you find something else that you like, and you identify with it. Oh no, that's no longer me. I'm the new me. And then you're satisfied and happy for a while. And then you meet some friends in school, and then you join a clique or a gang or a club, and then you identify with that. And no, that's the new me. The other me is I'm not happy with that anymore. So you're satisfied with the new you, satisfied, no longer questioning. And then something happens, and then you graduate, and you go to work, you go to school, whatever it is. You identify with the school, you identify with the team, you identify with the zip code, or whatever it is. Likewise, you go through another change. Oh, well, this is the new who I am, whatever it is. Then you meet a person, you get into a relationship, and then you identify with the relationship until something happens, and then you don't know who I am anymore, and then you find another relationship, and it keeps going. And if you don't get to the source of who you are, then it just keeps going. So likewise, your mind will be quiet once you find some satisfaction, right? Some kind of satisfaction. But here, this is the ultimate satisfaction, because this goes beyond all the things that are gross outside of you and subtle inside of you. So this is the highest knowledge, they say. This is the highest knowledge that one can attain, is having a direct experience of the true self, the unchanging self, not the changing self. Oftentimes people, I see people identify with the changing self, and they're happy for a few years, and it changes. But here, this is supposed to be permanent. Once you have the understanding, a direct experience of the self, you'll go through the ups and downs. And so there's a quote that I like. It says that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. Once you reach the state, yeah, you're still going to experience pain, But the suffering that results from it, suffering through misunderstanding or misidentification or identifying with something that's not going to last, is ultimately mental suffering. But once you understand there's a part of you that doesn't change, and you're experiencing change through the senses and the mind, depression, loss, whatever it is, and then gain and victory and praise and criticism, you know, and all that. So you go back and forth through these experiences, but you stay centered in who you are. Like, I know who I am in this chaos, and this chaos is just like a thunderstorm. It's going to pass. And once you realize that, then you sort of I saw Jay Shetty do a video today. I don't know if it was today, but it was on my feed, and he was like, you go about the world, and the world was this like yellow picture of yellow water, looked like pee or something, and it had this white cloth, and he had balled up. He's like, when you go into the world, if you encounter negativity or whatever, criticism, and he puts it in there, and it turns yellow, and he pulls it out, squeezes it, and he's like, and then you absorb all the crap. But once you have an understanding, a conviction of who you are, like not just an understanding, but a conviction of who you are, through a direct experience, he got another wad and put it into another glass, and put the glass upside down into the water, dunked it in all the way, and it was completely protected. Does that make sense? Are y'all with me? And so then we took it back out. He pulled the towel out, and it was untouched by the yellow water. That saying, in the world, but not of it. In the world, but not of it. Where have you heard that? The lotus, yeah, that's a sign of Eastern spirituality and enlightenment. The lotus flower. It's like a lily. The Egyptian lily is a type of lotus, but they have the seed. And it's the only flower that grows out of mud. It is the only flower that grows out of mud. It starts as a pod, and then a little tube pushes it up, pushes the pod towards the light, pushes the pod through the mud and towards the light like a straw, and then once it breaks water, opens up, flowers untouched by the mud, though it's rooted in the mud. This is an Eastern sign for enlightenment, or a symbol for enlightenment. It's rooted in the suffering, the dukkha, the dukkhi, the mud, right? Dukkha, dukkha, but it's in a state of pleasant state of flowered, open, beautiful, and untouched. There's not a drop of mud or dirt on the flower at all. It's like a lily, right? The lotus is a lily. So where else do we hear this? Jesus was in the world, but not of it. He wasn't affected by the karma from other people. He experienced the pain. It was definitely painful to get crucified, right? To die for other sins or whatever. Having to carry the cross and all that stuff. A lot of pain, but he did it happily. Well, I don't know if it was happily, but he did it, and he did it with the faith that, I don't know the story. You know the story better than I do, probably. Right? He did it, and he did it with a good attitude. So, but he was still in pain, but he wasn't suffering as he was doing it. So it's because there's an understanding. So yes, so it's be in the world, but not of it is very saintly, like a saint. So, Jesus, being the most famous Jewish yogi there is, was the epitome of yoga. Well, it depends on your understanding of it, I guess, because it's a few different. Over the years, the stories have changed a little bit. But so once you reach the goal, the mind no longer needs to think about anything, and the mind will enter seedless samadhi at will, because the mind is full of satisfaction and truth. Only when the mind is filled with doubt and ignorance, it will question and question and question and spin and spin and spin. Think about it. If your mind is filled with truth and clarity, you can just go about the world like a child. Unafraid. You can take a heavy dose of LSD and still be unafraid. Like Maharaj up there. There's a story that he was given a bunch of LSD, and he wanted more and more and more, but it did nothing to him. Everyone else was tripping balls around him, but he was clear. He's like, oh, this is an illusion, unaffected. Yeah? Yeah. Questions. We've reached the end of chapter 1. Let's take some questions. This is where it gets interesting.
The tattvas are from Samkhya philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Tattva means thatness. Tat means that. Tat means that. T-A-T, T-H-A-T, same word.
A lot of samadhis.
I'm sorry?
That was a lot of samadhis.
Yeah.
A lot of feeling.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of samadhis, right? And like the unlearned yoga practitioner thinks samadhi is just one thing.
Yeah.
It is not. It is many things, but it's all within the same spectrum, right? Same direction. We're going towards this direction of complete stillness of the mind, total concentration, and no disturbances. Absolutely no disturbances. Doesn't mean you'll stay there, but it means you've experienced the truth. And now you're armed with truth. You can fluctuate, you can fall off, you can regress, progress, regress, progress, regress. But if you regress, you're still armed with knowledge, right?
Would Chitta Vritti Nirodha describe Samadhi?
Would Chitta Vritti Nirodha describe Samadhi? What do you think?
Yes.
It is Samadhi. Chitta Vritti Nirodha is Samadhi.
Yoga is Samadhi, but yoga is more than Samadhi, right?
Yoga is Samadhi. According to this text, yoga is Samadhi. There are probably 17 definitions of Samadhi in all the scriptures, in all the different scriptures. But here he's talking about Samadhi yoga. Samadho yogihe. Samadho. Yoga is concentration. Here, yoga is concentration. In the Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga is different. He defines yoga as something different. Yoga is skill in action. Yoga is devotion. So it's or not in the Gita he says yoga is skill in action. He defines it a few other ways too. But in the Yagna I can't think. The Yagnavalkya, Yoga Yagnavalkya, in the Yoga Yagnavalkya written by Ishvara Krishna, he defines yoga as samyogehe. Samyogehe means total union of the jivatma, the individual soul, and the paramatma, the supreme soul. So that's a spiritual union between two things, a spiritual union between the individual and the supreme. So that's another text. Here, this text is primarily on the mind. This is called Raja Yoga, yoga of the mind. Meditation. Raja Yoga means the highest yoga, royal yoga. Then you have other yogas, right? Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. There are 4 classical paths, but that's another lecture, okay? We're just going to stay on Raja Yoga here, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So he's not saying this is spiritual union. This is understanding of the self. Difference. You can have spiritual union and still have ignorance on self. You can have ignorance. You can still live in bliss, which can be, So that's why earlier he says you need to transcend the promises of religion. I think it was the 14th sutra or something like that. Because even then you haven't reached the highest level of understanding. You can still sway. There's the conviction can be challenged.
yoga is still this broad concept of the Ashtanga, the 8 limbs.
We haven't even gotten there yet. Ashtanga. We haven't gotten there yet. It's in second chapter. So questions on, let's not get ahead. Let's just ask questions based on what we've studied. First chapter questions. There are a lot of questions that can arise, and I'm not saying you have to have all the questions. Your mind, your cup is so full now, it's probably hard to formulate a question. My suggestion is, if you don't have any questions, enjoy that mental silence. Don't force a question to arise. You see what I'm saying? Like, your mind has gotten so much satisfaction at this point, it's like, okay, let me just sit on this. The questions have reduced, right? The mind is known as a question maker. So this is called Jnana Yoga. I'm teaching you Raja Yoga. The practice is Raja Yoga, but studying the philosophy is called Jnana Yoga. Having to understand, you're using the mind to understand the mind. Once you have a level of understanding, the questions will start to diminish or reduce. And because when you fill the mind with truth, it doesn't care to question. And if stuff makes sense, it can rest. If it doesn't make sense, you'll be full of questions. So what that's telling me is that you guys are at a level right now of understanding. That you're satisfied. Why force a question? So in the olden days, they used to have these things called spiritual debates. They still do. It's not the debate where you go there are formal debates, like with a moderator. Like, anyone go to debate school or debate in school? Okay, there's a whole process, and there are rules of engagement. Well, with the spiritual debates, these philosophers would come in and they would all argue or debate on what is true and what is real. And the winner of the debate is the one who shuts everyone up. And the only way to speak is to add. So you have to add to the body of knowledge. Does that make sense? You have to uplift the knowledge. So the person who wins has the last word because they've quieted everybody. They filled everyone with truth and knowledge, and no one has anything else to add. Then samadhi can be attained. That's how you attain samadhi with jnana yoga. And that's by teaching scripture. It's fascinating. Those are the spiritual. You can look up spiritual debates on Wikipedia, and they'll tell you about this stuff. Old Indian practices. Yes?
Question about
Ishvara.
Ishvara.
Question about Ishvara, yep.
That is the source of Purusha? Is that true?
It is the idea. I don't know if it's a source. He never said that. He said that Ishvara is a unique consciousness that is unaffected by time. He didn't say it was a source. He didn't say it was a creator of all things, or the destroyer of all things, or the sustainer of all things. He just says Ishvara is a unique consciousness unaffected by the things that, like pain, time, karma. So again, so
our individual Purusha is not from Ishvara.
could be. Now we're just making stuff up, right? We're filling in blanks now. So he never said anything about that. He just says, at this point, he's telling you that Ishvara is a unique consciousness that is unaffected by time, pain, and unripe karma. So if you want to say, well, this is where we all come from, then you can make that understanding and satisfy your mind. But it's nothing what he said. Could be. But these are all ideas. Right? There's no proof. You can't prove that there is an Ishvara. You can have an experience and say, this is my experience. I had a connection with what I think is source that's greater than me. But I think what you're talking about now is Paramatma. Jivatma, individual, Paramatma being the source. No, that's another text. That's spiritual union. He's not talking about this here. Not talking about spiritual union. He's using the idea of Ishvara for your contemplation. Good question. But now you're getting out on a limb. You see what I'm saying? Yes? Yes? Okay.
Yeah. I seen the video, I think, with Pastor John.
Sir? Probably. But he's very poetic and he mixes philosophies. We're just staying with this. We're not bringing in Yoga Yagnavalkya. That's another philosophy. That's another book. It's all within the same family of thought, but this is very specific. It's kind of like people mixing up Vedanta and yoga. Happens all the time. Vedanta is not yoga. Yoga deals with the individual. Vedanta deals with everyone. We say yoga, we're all one. That's not yoga. Vedanta says we're all one. That's the message of Jesus. Jesus was a Vedanti as well. They say Jesus was also a Buddhist, but he had all these philosophies that he shared. Yoga, this yoga specifically, Raja Yoga, deals with only the individual. And then you see people talking about Buddhism and yoga, and they mix that too. And Buddhism and yoga are two different things. In Buddhism, they don't talk about the existence of consciousness or self or God. There's not a denial. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, Buddhism denies that there's God." No, they don't deny it. They don't accept you can't convince a Buddhist that there is a God or there isn't a God, or there is a soul or there isn't a soul. So they say, well, let's not argue about that. Let's talk about suffering. So Buddhism is all about the mind and suffering. Yoga deals with the individual soul or consciousness. And then if you do bhakti yoga, you're dealing with the supreme soul, consciousness, cosmic soul, God, source, whatever you want to call it. And then people are just mixing them all. Everything's getting mixed up these days. It's like, am I practicing yoga or Buddhism? Or I thought this was an exercise. Right? It's all getting mixed up. So let's try to stay confined in this particular scripture or philosophy. And then when you're satisfied with this, go study another one, and then another one. But if you mix them, if you go around reading different texts, it's going to cloud your mind and you're not going to have precise understanding. Does that make sense? I think this is the starting point. This is a starting point, because once you understand who you are, and then you go into these other philosophies, like you can't really excel in Vedanta, in my opinion, without having a direct understanding of yoga. Yoga is sort of like high school, and you'll be fine if you graduate high school, right? You can live, you can have a good, successful life. You can even have a successful life without high school. But having this diploma, if you will, it takes you to college, which is Vedanta. Vedanta. What is Vedanta? Vedanta is non-dualistic thinking. Vedanta means Advaita Vedanta. Advaita means non-dualistic. Dve means two. Advaita or Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta is non-dualistic. Yoga is a dualistic philosophy. Yoga is a dualistic philosophy. It is not a non-dualistic philosophy. What is dualistic? Object, subject. In Vedanta, it says, we are all subjects. We are all one. There's no difference between me and you. Which is true. Essentially, our essence is the same. While outside appearance, likes, dislikes, and all that are different because of the gunas, right? But essentially, we are all one. And then and then ultimately, at the high level of Vedanta, we say that even the differences are the same, because they're manifestations of the divine. So then therefore everything is divine, and we are all one. Everything is one, and you have love and appreciation for every single thing, good and bad, right? Pretty and ugly, and etc. But that's Vedanta. That's Vedanta. Yoga is different. Yoga says there's fundamentally a difference between subject and object. You can't have union if everything was already united. Yoga cannot happen if there are no distinct two objects. Yoga happens only if there's separation. So in a dualistic world, we are living in there is separation. But then Vedantists will say, well, that separation's an illusion. Well, true. So these two schools go back and forth, arguing, debating, and they'll never satisfy each other. And so Ramaswamy says, study them, and then pick one that you like the most and stick with that. They're all valid. They just have different perspectives on the world, within and without. But I think yoga is the starting point, because you got to have self-understanding. How can you understand or love someone else if you don't even understand or love yourself? And so I think yoga is the best place to start. Raja Yoga. There are many paths. There are many paths in yoga. Like I said earlier, many paths in yoga. But a mind unfit to concentrate is unfit for any path. Right? Think about it. I want to be a bhakti yogi, a bhakta. I want to be a bhakti yogi, but I can't concentrate. So you're not going to be devoted. You're going to be devoted one day and laxical another. Be hot or be cold, or I'll spew you out of my mouth, right? So you want to do karma yoga. Well, karma yoga is selfless service. So, you're selfless for a week, and the next thing you know, you're back to the selfish, greedy old jerk you were before. Or you want to do jnana yoga. You don't have the comprehension, the capacity to understand anything. The better your focus and concentration, the better your understanding. You can't concentrate. There's no way you're going to get any jnana yoga. And of course, raja yoga or hatha yoga, right? You're not going to be able to progress in hatha yoga if you can't be consistent, or you can't hold a yoga pose for more than one breath because it hurts so much, Oh, it hurts, I can't be there. You're distracted by pain or distracted by discomfort. So nobody can progress in any path if they don't have the power to concentrate. No path. A path in yoga or path in life. Without concentration, you will not succeed in anything. So therefore, this yoga is I think essential for everybody, is to have some kind of meditation practice, concentration practice, so that whenever things get chaotic, you can stay firm and stable. And most people don't do the preemptive stuff, preventative stuff, where they wait till shit gets crazy and then they go, I'm gonna try to meditate now. You should learn to do it before shit gets crazy. And that's why and that's one of the things that we're gonna really push in this nonprofit, is to get ahead of things. In medicine, you try to get ahead of your infection or ahead of your pain. Same here. We're trying to get ahead of our future suffering. Ayam dukkam managatam. I think he says that. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. That's second chapter. Ayam dukkam managatam. Future pain is to be avoided. If you can see the pain coming, freaking avoid it. And if your mind is full of clarity and truth, you will see it coming. Isn't it? Right? You'll see it coming if you have clarity. You have clarity if you see the past clearly, because history repeats itself. And if you can see the past clearly because you were clear, let's say you've reached a state of samadhi, your mind has been so clear, and you maintain that for about 5 years. You made mental clarity for 5 years. Every day, every experience is now logged in your mind through memory, and it was accurate. Those experiences were truthful experiences. Now you're looking back, you can safely and most likely correctly assume, unless it's a calamity or an act of God, or pain caused by another person. I think have we talked about that yet? Pain, the 3 types of pain. Okay, that's the next chapter. But if you can remember the past 5 years very clearly, you can pretty much predict the next 5 years, more or less. Because you're going to see these patterns. Seasons change, mad things rearrange, but it all stays the same. Who said that? Lauryn Hill. Seasons change, mad things rearrange, but it all stays the same. History repeats itself. And so, but a lot of times we go through life, and the past 5 years of our lives are not clear. and it's not full of truth. It's full of misunderstanding. You look back, you're like, oh, I thought that was true, it wasn't. Oh, I thought that was true, it wasn't. Oh, I thought this person was that way, and he wasn't. So you're going through all these past 5 years full of misunderstanding. And so how can you predict the future if everything you thought in the past was true wasn't? Yeah? Okay. So, yes, Valerie.
Yes, I had a question. The end, the chapter 1 ends with a sentence saying the self is neither happy nor unhappy. Can you clarify a little bit that?
Yeah, the self is neither happy or unhappy because the self is pure. Happy and unhappy is a conditioning.
Yes, yes.
And that conditioning is experienced through the mind. The ego, more importantly, the ego is satisfied, then the ego is happy. Mind is considered happy. If the ego isn't, the desires of the ego aren't met, then the ego then is unhappy, right? And that is not the self. The self experiences this. The self is the observer, the witness. And what is the witnessing? The self is witnessing happiness. And so because there's a confusion between the object, the mind, the experience of the mind, and the self. So the three things become mixed.
Mhm.
I become happy. I'm not happy. I'm experiencing happiness through my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, then you realize that the self is unaffected by anything. It's just pure consciousness, pure, not impure. The experience is the impurity. So then at this level, you'll understand that the self is neither happy nor. I told you the story of the king, the dancer. I think I might have told you the story of the king and the dancer, have I?
I don't think so.
Okay, here's the story of the king and the dancer. So the king, the Maharaj, the great king, sits on his throne. And every day he has people doing things, serving him, showing things, consulting him. He has to make decisions, whatever. And then sometime throughout the day, a court entertainer comes, whether a magician, a juggler, or a dancer. And they come in day after day, and they do their best. They do their best. They do their best, and then they're always asking, oh, I hope you're happy. Hope you're happy. Hope you're happy. I'm doing this to make you happy. At the end of their life, their last dance, they do the dance, and they go, okay, it's my honor to have served you this lifetime, and I just want to make sure that my dancing made you happy. And the king says, it doesn't matter. I'm already happy. Your dancing doesn't make me any more happy or any less happy. I am happy. In other words, he's unaffected. So just like this, the soul, the Purusha, is unaffected. The soul is pure, means it's unaffected, cannot be made impure through an experience. So therefore, when you reach this level when you find out that this part of you, the soul, Purusha, is unaffected by pain, by karma, by time, then you realize that you are, in essence, Ishvara. Cha-ching. That's why they call it God realization, that I am God. But not I as in the body-mind complex, but I as in the observer. I am not Jehovah's Witness. The witness is Jehovah. And I am that witness. Right? What does Jehovah's Witness mean? I've seen God. Yeah? You don't see God, you realize God. You realize that that part of you is divine. And you can say it came from source, and it goes back to source. But that's not what he's saying. But this is the deduction, the inference. Yes? And if you read other texts, then it will support that inference. But this text doesn't say that. This is just a stepping stone to other texts. Okay? So your question was right on. It's just not, it's outside the parameters of this text. All right, Valerie? Yes? Are there mosquitoes in here that are biting anybody? I'm not being bitten. Anybody being bit? Okay, they're harmless. Okay. I was gonna say close the door if so. Good question. Yes, the self is neither happy or unhappy.
Thank
It
you.
is bliss. It is a state of bliss. Bliss transcends happiness and unhappiness. It's a transcendental state. It's the unaffected state. It's the underlying. All right. How many are you a science? You like science? It's like you like science? You like science? Okay. I want to play this video. It's about 20 minutes, so we're probably going to go a little bit over. I'll also give you the link to it. Oh, 36 minutes. We're not going to go all 36. I'm going to send the link on the Yoga Sutra. All right, so you have to pay attention because it's not, you just got to pay attention. Where are we? Yes. No, guys, shut the, please shut the garage door and then shut the door. To the right, to the right. All right, hit it again.
Dr. Hagelin is a world-renowned quantum physicist, educator, author, and president of the Global Union of Scientists. Dr. Hagelin has published over 100 science.
Can you guys hear on your end?
Articles on fundamental.
You can't hear?
I cannot hear.
So it sound doesn't go through when you screen share? It's a setting.
I'm sorry. I meant that I couldn't hear it very well.
Yeah, it's very low, kind of on the background, so it's not.
So it's probably coming through the microphone and not through your computer, right? I mean, not through, it's going through my microphone and then your
Right.
speakers versus going through your browser. Is there a
Yes.
way to change that, Andrea?
Yes, but if this were Teams, I could do it in the same. So I don't know.
Oh,
Wrong company.
all right. So,
It might be if you stop sharing,
I think
Okay.
it's in the settings.
and then if you, yeah, go to here, click on that, and then switch it to the output. Select the microphone.
huh?
Are you using your USB audio right now?
Yeah, that's this right here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I would say do save it.
Merci.
This one?
Or that. They might hear it from your
Okay, so let's try again, okay? And if this doesn't work out, just watch it on your own. All right, hang on.
a theory that was featured in a cover story of Discover
Is it the
magazine.
same?
No, better.
Dr. Hagelin
Okay.
is also one of the world.
It's probably just enough for them to hear. It's just not sharing it. Which is fine.
So we've got Dr. Hagelin. This guy is renowned physicist. Okay. All right.
Dr. Hagelin is a world-renowned quantum physicist, educator, author, and president of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. Dr. Hagelin has published over 100 scientific books and articles on fundamental particle physics, electroweak unification, grand unification, supersymmetry, and cosmology. He is responsible for the development of a highly successful grand unified field theory based on the superstring, a theory that was featured in a cover story of Discover magazine. Dr. Hagelin is also one of the world's preeminent researchers on the effects of yoga and yogic meditation, including transcendental meditation, on brain development and higher states of consciousness, samadhi and enlightenment, and the use of Vedic technologies of yoga and yajna to diffuse societal stress, prevent crime and social violence, and to promote economic prosperity and societal peace. Dr. Hagelin received his A.B. summa cum laude from Dartmouth College in 1975, and his PhD is from Harvard University in 1981. He is currently director of the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy and professor of physics at Maharishi University of Management. It's a very great honor to welcome Dr. John Hagelin.
Good afternoon, Shankaracharya Maharaj, Rajaramji, great sadhus and scholars and scientists and political leaders and entrepreneurs. It's really an honor to be participating in this great new awakening of the profound and powerful Vedic wisdom in this auspicious conference. My focus and the focus of this conference primarily is the Vedic science and its practical technologies in our modern world today. Most people throughout the world, many even in India, certainly many young people in India, don't truly know what Veda is. The focus of my talk today will be that the Vedic science, the Vedic wisdom is truly scientific. It is immensely practical and proven, and it is increasingly indispensable in this modern age. I will show that the Vedic tradition, as I think you all realize, is founded upon the complete knowledge and practical utilization of the ultimate reality, which in the modern scientific language we call the unified field. So since we're talking about Vedic science and technology, let me phrase the question and answer it from the standpoint of a physicist. What is Veda? Well, in essence, as the chart shows, Veda is the foundational level of natural law, the deepest laws of nature governing the universe, the laws that govern the emergence of the universe, the evolution of the universe, the deepest laws of nature. Now, from modern science, looking back over the history of the last 50 years, has been an exploration of deeper levels of reality, deeper and deeper levels of reality, beginning with Newtonian physics or classical physics of the macroscopic, observable world, our environment. But then in the last century, delving into the world of the atom, which is governed by quantum mechanics, and then delving into the realm of the nucleus, which is governed by quantum field theory. And now the main thrust of physics today is delving into the unified field. As this chart shows, or superstring field.
So this unified field and all this is like what you experience in Samadhi. It's going so deep within your own experience that you transcend even quantum physics. You're in the quantum field, but you go to the base, the root of the quantum experience. And this is all described in the Vedas, and he's going to prove it.
The language of physics.
Oh, and by the way, I got this video in 2016. I've been holding on to it. I show it every now and again when it's applicable. Otherwise, it's just, you know.
The most fundamental laws of nature that give rise to all the particles and forces that govern the universe, all of the atoms and molecules and macromolecules and physiologies and planets and galaxies. The whole universe, as you can see, emerges stage by stage in a very precisely understood mechanics from universal, pure intelligence, the unified field giving rise to the world of matter. And the whole understanding by science of the dynamics of that unity, the mechanics of creation, the mechanics of the emergence of this ever-changing relative universe from the never-changing absolute, the emergence of the mortality from the field of immortality. That is the focus of physics today, and that is, as this chart shows, the eternal focus, the eternal wisdom of the Vedas. In fact, I will claim and then show that the Vedic knowledge, the Veda itself, is that fundamental dynamics of unity at the basis of the emerging diversity of the universe. That in the modern scientific language, Veda is the unified field.
Veda means science.
And showing that, this audience
Veda means science or knowledge.
Today may not require much convincing. But honestly, in giving this talk to most scientific audiences in the West, they say, well, wait a minute. Are you saying that the ancient rishis and forest dwellers,
Yogis,
thousands of years ago, actually conceived of the fundamental unity of life? They understood, even experienced the unified field at the basis of creation. And I will typically say, I hate to disappoint you, but actually the Vedic science is in most important respects more advanced and far more practical in its application than modern science. I'm going to show that. This is what I call my 6-minute detour. I'm going to show, because there are scientists in the audience, that the unified field is the Veda, and the Veda is the unified field. Well, how do you show that? Well, one way is to look.
Okay, so we're coming to a close. There's a lot left, so I encourage you guys to watch this on your own. But look at this diagram. I'm gonna show you something else. Blow your mind a little bit. Sankhya philosophy. Look at these diagrams. It's the mapping of the universe. Sankhya. The gunas, sattva, raja, tamas. I have it backwards. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Should be earth over here. Anyways, yeah. So this is these will become these in a minute as you continue to watch.
Look at the universe that comes out of the Veda. and look at the universe that comes out of the unified field, and I will show that they are identical. If somebody gives you 2 seeds, and they say these are very precious orange seeds, and they will yield a very precious orange tree, you might just believe them.
Seeds.
Or if you're skeptical, you may want to prove that these 2 seeds, these 2 unified fields, the unified field and the Veda, are really the same. Well, one thing you can always do is you can plant the seed in the ground and watch what comes out, and you can determine whether you do get an orange tree, or maybe one of them gives a lemon tree. So if we look what comes out of the fundamental unified field, what comes out of the Veda, if they're different, then the unified field is not the Veda. But if they are the same, then the unified field and the Veda are the same seed. Different languages, different approaches. One experiential, the other mathematical, intellectual.
In other words, a direct experience versus scriptural or inference.
But we can see whether they are the same. So let's take a look. What comes out of the unified field? The universe comes out of the unified field. And this shows a little bit what the unified field is. Unified field is an ocean of pure existence, an ocean of infinite silence, an unbounded sea of intelligence and pure creativity. But on the surface of the ocean is the ever-changing world of change and of dynamism. So silence at its core, dynamic on the surface of
Purusha and Prakriti. What he's talking about. This is the same for Sankhya philosophy right here, is quantum physics.
the ocean of pure being. That is the structure. If you wish, in the Vedic language, this infinite silence, absolute unchanging, beyond space and beyond time,
So I just want to, I ideally would have showed the whole thing today, but we are going to go ahead and cut it. It's 5 minutes after. Can you guys hear me over there? I disconnected my other mic. Okay, so good. I sent the link on WhatsApp. So let's go ahead and clean up. Let's go ahead and close up. Yogena chittasya padena vacham alam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarotam prabharamuninam patanjalim pranjali pranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankachakra siddharinam sahasrashirasham shvetam pranamami patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya namo namaha namo namaha namo namaha. All right, thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.